Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages. This is Jesse with the Common Nerd, bringing you pop culture and all things nerdy through a common sense lens. And well, boys and girls, if you hadn't heard, Captain America Brave New World just premiered out there in LA last night. And well, needless to say, things aren't looking very good for the next Marvel movie out there, hoping to make a bunch of money at the box office, because not only was there a bunch of crazy protests that went on outside of the premiere as well, with a bunch of protesters out there ragging on Disney for their own personal grievances out there, but the critics are absolutely despising this movie, boys and girls, and the box office is not looking good out there as well. And I know we could say, well, you know, the critics don't always matter and yada, 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 and that is true. At the end of the day, the audience does decide, but if you look at the best box office estimates they've got right now, once we show you the numbers of all that kind of stuff and break it down for you, you're going to realize this movie is absolutely doomed to failure, whether or not you enjoy it or not, ladies and gentlemen, because as you can see from the headline over here from Variety, Captain America Brave New World draws mixed first reactions. Some praise it as an absolute blast, and others saying it's slightly empty. And trust me, once we show you the actual Rotten Tomatoes score from the critics, you will realize it is way beyond a mixed bag. Boys and girls, in this movie is destined to fail. And like I said, I mentioned the box office numbers as well. Captain America Brave New World opening weekend looks bleak. And as we know, this movie cost at least $300 million because they have shot this movie twice. Ladies and gentlemen, don't believe the Hollywood Reporter and all the rest of these people saying it's $180 million. But even if you do believe the $180 million, boys and girls, trust me, once we break down these numbers, we will show you that even that will not matter. This movie is going to flop, and the critics already are abandoning ship when it comes to all things Disney Marvel. So we're going to check out these articles, we're going to show these websites, give you all the juicy details. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing, and I could not do that without every single one of you. We just crossed 1,600, we're on our way to 1,700, and I'd really appreciate it if you joined us down here by hitting that subscribe button. Also, let us know what you think about this in the comment section down below. Am I completely and totally being unfair to this movie? Do you think maybe it'll have good of word of mouth and it'll do really well? Or do you think, just like I do, based on all of this obvious evidence out there, that this movie is going to flop horribly at the box office and cost Disney Marvel hundreds of millions of dollars once again? Let us know what you think about all that in the comment section down below. And if you'd like to support the channel, please check out the links in the description as well. All right, from Variety.com, Zach Sharf and Jack Dunn. I guess they had to co-write this one. Captain America Brave New World draws mixed reactions. Marvel's Captain America Brave New World has been unveiled from members of the press, and the first reactions toward the comic book tentpole are coming in lukewarm. Like I said, that's an understatement. Washington Post entertainment reporter Herb Schreider praised Brave New World, calling it an absolute blast, all in one story. Others, like film critic Chris Parker, wrote, the film didn't quite hit the emotional or narrative highs I was hoping for. Loved Mackie as Cap, and I appreciate the more serious tone, but it did feel slightly empty. We've got another one over here, gave a similar review. Right was grounded, entertaining to the point. Solid action, mild surprises. Red Hulk was great. Felt like it pulled a lot of political punches. Probably not going to go over very well with the mainstream audiences if that's the case. Hard to tell whether the marketing showed too much or if the movie didn't have much else to offer. It was average. Boys and girls, I don't know what's going on. Maybe the Disney checks aren't clearing anymore. Maybe Marvel decided to stop giving all these people early access to everything. Or maybe, who knows, maybe the Hollywood legacy institutions out there finally decided to go, you know what, we're done going out there. This movie is the bestest thing ever. And they're watching it completely and totally collapse at the box office. Because apparently, based on the Rotten Tomatoes scores, ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly what this is. A 51% from the critic score. And this is all critics. They don't even give you an option. They don't even give you an option like they used to highlight top critics. Well, maybe it's because they don't have enough reviews. I highly doubt that, because you used to be able to get a top critic score with like 10 reviews. But literally, look at this right here. They've changed the algorithm over there to hopefully try to help it, because this 51%, right, these 95 reviews includes all of your little silly little access, never heard of them before blog kind of people out there. The people that are actual access media that only get any kind of influence out there because Disney gives them early access to things. Even those people, you couldn't do it. 51%. I mean, 48 fresh, 47 rotten. That's way beyond divided. Critics do not like this movie for the most part. It's absolutely abysmal. And this isn't like it's just like regular people, like The Playlist, right? Have you ever heard of The Playlist? Well, he gave it something good. And I mean, Seattle Times, really? Seattle gave it a positive. But Inverse, boys and girls, Inverse gave it a rotten. The Movie Critic, ever heard of that guy? Hollywood and Toto. Now, I have heard of him. We've covered some of his stuff before. It says Anthony Mackie earns his close-up, but sequel misses too many opportunities. So he still gave it a rotten one. That doesn't sound like a great raving endorsement. Gone with the Twins. Never heard of them either, though. But they gave it a splat. This entire endeavor feels as if a random episode from a serialized TV show with no discernible beginning or end, merely revealing momentarily in fleeting action and showdowns. 4 out of 10. And I mean, literally, Christian and Toto only barely gave it. He gave it a 2.5 out of 4 for his. So he even barely gave it right here. This guy actually uses a 10 score, and he gives it a lower one. This guy, 3 out of 5. He gives it that one. But look, we've got Espionage, Awards Radar, The Movie Couple, never heard of them, Firing the Cannon, Big Gold Butt Media, Samaria Film, Boston Globe. Boston Globe gave it a splat. And it seems like Boston Globe actually seems to be kind of pretty honest a lot of times as well. But look at The Observer, another top critic, gives it a splat, right? Fandom Wire, boys and girls. Access Media of Access Media. Shills of the Spirit of the Age. Alan French gives it a splat. So what were we saying here? Well, we're saying the critics hate it, and this generally isn't a good start to a franchise. Now, have we obviously seen it a million times before that, the critics hate something and the audiences absolutely love it and it goes on to be a success? Yes, of course it is. But that is not the case. We know there is no hype over Captain Black America among most of the general audiences out there, and especially among the hardcore Marvel fans. How do we know that? Because even the Access Media legacy institutions have to admit out there that the box office predictions are not looking good. As you can see over here from fandompulse.substack, Captain America Brave New World opening weekend looks bleak. A new report alleges that Marvel Studios' upcoming Captain America Brave New World film is expected to have a mediocre opening weekend both domestically and globally. Deadline, mind you, reports that Captain America Brave New World is expected to have a domestic 3-day opening of just $80 million. Okay, let's just stop right there for a second. The $80 million, okay? So for those of you that aren't very well aware of the way box office trends generally go, right? Every single movie out there, when they open up, they almost always, 99 out of 100 times, end up coming in less than what they did the week before, right? And actually all of them do. What they almost always have is at minimum, right? A 50% drop, right? Most times it's anywhere between a 60% drop to a 70% drop on your second weekend. And that trend continues over and over and normally gets even higher and higher as your movie gets out of the cultural zeitgeist and it gets out of the mainstream media, right? So let's just be nice. $80 million for their opening weekend. Let's just say miraculously, somehow they hit 50%. 80 million plus 40 million, right? 120 million. 20 million plus that is 160 million, right? It go 140 million, right? 140 million. Domestically, just keeping that trend going, you're looking at best $160 million for its domestic run out there, right? 190 million. Internationally, global opening, 190 million. Now, we know they don't get very much money, right? The box office in the United States is about 50-50. Overseas, it's about 40-60, where the studios only get 40%. And when it comes to China, you get even less. You get about 25% of the box office, right? So at minimum, even with the $180 million budget, right? Even just saying that's true, this movie still has to make at minimum 2.5 times $600 million to become a profit, right? And if we're only making anywhere between $150 to $160 million at the domestic box office, that international box office would have to be just the international box office would have to be $500 million in order to make up for it, right? This is not going to work. The numbers don't lie. 2 plus 2 still equals 4. The critics hate this movie, and even the Access Media out there, the legacy media guys, are only predicting an $80 million domestic box office opening. And honestly, I'd imagine just like so many other Marvel movies that nobody has wanted over the last few years, this thing will come in under estimates. It'd probably be a miracle if this thing hits 80 million. It'll probably come in somewhere between the range of 70 to 75 million, because even Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which is loved by critics and audiences alike. That movie had it came in underperforming on opening weekend because of the taint that Marvel had on all of their products at the time. Now, fortunately enough, that movie did go on to make a profit because guess what? The audience loved it. The word of mouth was fabulous about that movie, and it ended up barely eking out a profit. That movie should have made $1 billion. They ended up tapping out around 850 globally, right? Captain Black America is not going to make that in any way, shape, or form. This movie is not going to have good word of mouth the second week around. I mean, if the critics are already completely and totally divided and hate this movie, how do you expect the audience to feel? There is no way in Hades this movie is a success or a profit by any actual measurable standards. And then if and when we ever get the actual real budget, which I believe this one was filmed in Georgia, so we won't actually ever get that, right? Even if we ever found out the real budget, which is probably going to be closer to $300 million because they shot this movie twice. And guess what? Even the trade magazines have to admit that as well. So there's no way this movie cost $180 million. And we can give you the million examples of all the times the trade magazines have lied about these budgets before because we get the tax documents from the United Kingdom. But without having to do that, even without having to do that and prove to you that $180 million is a lie, basic math means this movie will not make a profit because everybody gets at minimum a 60 to 70% drop weekend over weekend. And I guarantee you the word of mouth for Captain America Brave New World is no way going to be able to pull off Guardians of the Galaxy level word of mouth. That is the only thing that saved this movie. Nobody wants Sam Wilson as Captain America. We want him as Falcon. Steve Rogers is Captain America. The best substitute you could have given us was Bucky, but oh no, Disney Marvel couldn't do that because Bucky's a white guy. You had to have black Captain America, just like Anthony Mackie said, so all the black kids out there can see themselves as Captain America, even though he related to Superman as a kid. And guess what? Superman ain't black. This whole thing was nothing more than a diversity, inclusion, and equity disastrous dumpster fire, right? We heard the reports from inside of Disney. This movie is at best manageable. They know this thing is going to flop. They know this thing is going to fail. And at this point, all the media is doing is trying to cover up for their butts. The media critics hate this movie. The box office predictions are going to come in under what they expect. And even if they did, this movie with even a 50% drop, which is not going to happen, would still lose money. Whether you like the movie or not does not matter. The diversity, inclusion, and equity movie that is Captain Black America is going to flop just like every other woke project out there has. That's what this movie was designed to be from the beginning, and they spent all last summer trying to make it a better action movie. And guess what? Even the shill access media critics can't agree that this movie is even halfway decent. They considered it certified rotten, and I guarantee you the audience will too, which means one thing and one thing only. Captain Black America is going to flop and cost the Disney Marvel company hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's exactly what they deserve.